Hi, welcome to Everbox Guitar Tuition. So my classic album inspection today, 35 years old today, May the 11th, 1989, is the debut album by Badlands. So this has become something of a cult classic really since its release, and it's probably one of the great late 80s albums in a lot of ways. Its reputation's kind of grown over time. So Badlands was formed by Jakey Lee upon him being fired by Ozzy Osbourne. Well, it was Sharon who fired him. He actually heard that he'd been fired by his roommate, who was his roadie, and then he phoned Sharon for confirmation. So, very classy. He got together with vocalist Ray Gillen. Ray Gillen had been in Black Sabbath for the 7-star tour and did the Eternal Idol demos, but then he kind of teamed up with John Sykes for the Blue Murder project, but that didn't work out. So he teamed up with Jakey Lee. They got Greg Chazon on bass and Eric Singer on drums, who would later go on to find fame with Kiss. So one of the things that sort of Badlands sets them apart is that there's a lot of bands around this time that were talking about getting back to kind of a more classic rock sound. There was talk of sort of Lynch Mob, Blue Murder, bands like that, and these bands all had kind of, you could hear the influences of Led Zeppelin and things like that, but the production was still very polished, and the images and the videos of the band were still on full hair metal. I love the Blue Murder and I love the Lynch Mob debut. What set Badlands apart is they're completely authentically stuck to this. I think this is a very natural recording. The guitars are just double tracked. Occasionally you get the odd extra part in. Songs will be like layering with clean and acoustic, but there's not really much extra going on there. There will overdub solos, but sometimes solos and leads parts will be done in the same pass, a la Van Halen 1. Bass and drums just very natural, got quite a big bottom end and keeping the 70s vibe. Vocals, you can hear it's probably been called from just 1-2 takes. There's the odd double track, there's the odd little harmony here and there, but it's underproduced deliberately to capture that kind of sound. What were Badlands' influences? I mean, obviously Led Zeppelin springs to mind because Ray Gillen has got a high sort of Robert Plant shriek, so to speak. But I think you can hear the American rock that these guys grew up on, and I'm sort of thinking things like Grand Funk, Cactus, kind of not as well known band, but Carmine Appice's band he was in. Certainly Montrose, probably like sort of early Ted Nugent, and things like that have got an American take on the classic rock sound. Mountain as well. Album was produced by Paul O'Neill of the Trans-Siberian Orchestra fame with Badlands. I can't imagine this is recorded at one-on-one studios in Los Angeles and Wreck and Plant in New York, so expensive studios, but I can't imagine a massive amount of time was spent on this. It was actually released through Titanium Records, that was a division subsidiary of Atlantic, and we'll come to that later on. So what does it start off? It starts off with High Wire, and this kind of sets out the statement of intent really. Jakey Lee's guitar just starts off on one side of the stereo spectrum, and then the double track comes in. The guitar sounds very gnarly on this. I'll be honest, I can't say I totally like the rim sound on this. I feel like Jakey Lee he was always been alive to me. They never really captured recording wise. I think there's quite a bit of mid on his guitar on this, and this makes it very abrasive. It brings out the kind of fizz on the top really a bit. So the guitar's kind of set on top of the mix more. The separation's really good though. But it is a kind of rough and ready sound, and it's completely against the grain of what was going on then. And that's probably worked against it, but it doesn't now. This is a great track. It's got a great vocal by Ray Gillen. Just shows off all his strengths. I think Mike Portnoy's band covered this. I forget the name of the group with Russell Allen. It's 3 minutes 45. It's just a really good track. I think that's the other point. They've come in at under 4 minutes. The next track, Dreams in the Dark, comes in at number 4 minutes. So to just say High Wire actually goes into double time at the end. And that's a common sort of trope on the album. Dreams in the Dark. This is probably the most hair metal track in inverted commas. And this is the only track that has an acquiescence to the Aussie sound in the middle. Jake is a kind of classic Jakey Lee, digga 16th note riff that's really cool with a kind of more of an Aussie-ish solo on this album. He's doing really gutsy blues playing. There's not many sort of Jakey Lee shreddy things. Really catchy, again a great vocal, really well arranged track this, great. Next up's Jade's song. This is a short instrumental acoustic. So again, kind of touching base with the Aussie thing a little bit, because although it's not like D by Randy Rose, it's in that ilk where you've got a short acoustic piece. A lot of guitarists did this kind of thing at the time, Ronnie the Tech Crow, with songs like Classic Romance and Smooth Syncopation. And of course, really, it kind of goes back to Tony Iommi's little noodlings on those early Sabbath records. So again, it kind of puts it in that lineage. The other thing, I don't know if it was an influence on the band, but yeah, there's a bit of heart there, you know, with the acoustic guitar. You know, there's a song called Silver Wheels on Bebe Lestrange by Heart. Next up is Winter's Call. This is co-written by a guy called Alex Gonzalez. Not sure what his influence part was in the band. This is like the big sort of Zeppelin epic type track, really good. Again, when it starts off, you can hear kind of like I was talking about, that Heart influence to me. So if you think early Heart's very influenced by Led Zeppelin, it's kind of like that in a way. It's kind of probably by proxy, so to speak. But yeah, this is a great track. Again, it's got a great groove. Eric Singer does a fantastic groove on the drums on this. It's got that kind of open splashiness. I very much doubt she's done a click track, this album. Maybe it was, I don't know. It just seems it's got that ebb and flow. Jake does a really cool kind of delayed sort of Mixolydian drone thing on the outro section. Really good. Then you got Dancing on the Edge, 3 minutes 27 seconds. This is just a really catchy track. Very catchy. Yeah, it's a really good track. I'm just looking at it, so I'm trying to remember how the vinyl laid out, but you got 6, 7, 10, 15, 16, 17 minutes. Yeah, I'd imagine, I could be wrong with this, but I suspect The Streets Cry Freedom was the finishing track on the original vinyl. I could be wrong. I bought this like pretty much the week it came out. Interestingly enough, this actually came out around the same time as Mr. Big's debut, which is another album I bought. And again, Mr. Big's more popular, but again, Eric Martin singing. Again, they were one of those bands, there was talk of sort of that classic rock sound, and I think Mr. Big had that a bit in places, but they kind of had that more AOR thing. Again, you know, Badlands were the only one to do it. So Streets Cry Freedom's a great track, really good, really atmospheric verse. There's a kind of, it goes into double time and riffs up in the middle, and again you can hear the kind of gnarliness of Jake's sound. I imagine he used like, you know, some kind of old Marshall on this. Again, just my preference. It might have been cooler if he'd used a Soldano, and if he used like a Soldano, which was the boutique sort of take on the Marshall sound, but that's just my sort of preference sound wise. Really good track. Then you got Hard Driver. This is kind of the up tempo, full throttle, you know, driving track. Really good. You can get a bit of vocal harmony on this, on the chorus, but again, it's just pretty sparse, just that little bit of layering just to get a bit of a hook in. Cool solo. I'm trying to remember which track is a track actually where Jake kind of plays his solo in the same pass as the rhythm and double tracks either side, and I can't remember which one it is. It might be Streets Cry Freedom, it might be Hard Driver, Dancing on Edge, I'm not sure, but anyway, that's worth listening to. Next track's Rumbling Train. This is a slow blues. This is a sort of track that I would probably pass me by when I was younger, but it's really good. Again, it's got a slow stomp. Gillan's vocals excellent, really authentic bluesy vibe. Jake does a really cool building solo, and he gets some really gnarly vibrato in it. It's probably his best solo on the album for me. So pretty much you've got 8 tracks off the bat, or 7, you've got a little instrumental that are just really cracking. The only track that kind of dips here is Devil Stomp, which has got a cool intro. But the track's okay, I just don't think it works quite as well. I'll just jump ahead, and there's a track called Ball and Chain, which is a bonus track on the CD and cassette bonus. And maybe is Ball and Chain a bit better than Devil Stomp? Maybe it is. It's still not quite up there, the other tracks, so maybe I would have traded that in, but I'm not sure. And then Seasons finishes off the album. So this has got a really haunting kind of A minor type riff with the F over A. It's weird, it kind of reminds me of I don't know if people know the film Dirty Harry. There's the bit in the film where the killer has buried the girl alive with the oxygen, and then by the time they get her, she's dead. And there's this really haunting theme, and then it plays at the end. And it kind of reminds me of that. And again, although it's from a film soundtrack, it's fitting in with that 70s milieu, so to speak. So yeah, looking at the side 2, 10, 19 minutes, 20, yeah, that would work. So this album was about 45 minutes, so, you know, starting to get on that longer side with the CD era, but still pretty short and punchy. So, I mean, under the genres here, it says heavy metal, glam metal, blues, hard rock. I mean, the heavy metal, I would discount that. There's nothing heavy metal on it. There's a lot of hard rock and heavy rock. Glam metal, this is where it went wrong for this album. There's nothing glammy about Badlands. When you look on the front cover, they're kind of wearing jeans. They have got long hair. The hair's a little kind of bigger than would be. But because of the association with Ozzy and because of the time, all these bands just get lumped into that thing. You know, I find it extraordinary when you look at magazines like Classic Rock. Every few months, they're basically singing the praises of bands that do a kind of Zeppelin, authentic, legacy rock style or country rock style. And Badlands got a bit more into the country rock thing. On the next album, you know, bands like a Blackstone Cherry or Rival Sons, but none of these bands come close to Badlands. Particularly Ray Gillan, who is he's the lost genius of hard rock singing. There's a bit more of that story which we'll come to. Just looking at this album, sold 400,000 copies by 1990. If that was now, the record company, Badlands, everyone would be happy as pigs in shit, but it just didn't cut back then, you know, with tour support and even the kind of videos Badlands did, which are pretty kind of stripped down. They still would have set the band back probably $100,000. The recording, even though it's probably done pretty quickly, they've probably spent $100,000 or $70,000 or something. Then you got wages and stuff like that, and you know, if you weren't selling gold at least, then you wouldn't get a second pop. They did with the next album, but then Ray Gillan passed away. So yeah, I think this album's it is a 9 out of 10. I must confess, when I first got it, I liked it, but I just didn't totally get it. I was caught up in the big hair metal thing, you know. So something like the Lynchman album or the Blue Murder album, which you know, in that era and where we're kind of pushing possibly that same ilk. You know, I preferred that, but listening now, you know, this is a really great record. The follow-up, Voodoo Highway, is probably a 6, 7 out of 10. It's got some really good tracks. The production's kind of raw, it's kind of taking it further. And then the final album, which was basically demos released for the third album, and then they got dropped by Atlantic Titanium, is not everything's finished on that. A lot of Ray Gillan's lyrics aren't finished, but what's interesting, he does something called jib jab. He scats a lot. So he kind of makes vowel sounds and that, and he sounds like he's singing a word on some bits, but he's not, but he's just, you know, feeling his way out. And you can hear the sort of strength of the band on this, because they just went in the studio, just laid down 1 or 2 takes just to present the demos. When you actually listen to the Dusk album, it's pretty good. So they're very, very efficient. And again, it's the commitment to the authenticity of this sound. You know, like I said, if Badlands had kind of appeared in the mid-noughties and caught a bit of the classic rock train, you know, they'd easily be playing, you know, mid-sized venues and on arena packages, you know, when you've got 2 or 3 other bands, which bands like Blackstone Cherry are doing. So what happened, so I've got the Rock Candy remaster, and Rock Candy also remastered Voodoo Highway. I didn't get that one. Then it got pulled. Okay, so the story with this is Ray Gillan developed HIV. He died as a complication of AIDS in 1993, and allegedly he infected a woman when he knowingly had it. Now this lady girl was daughter of an executive at Atlantic Records. Now obviously Atlantic Records no longer exists, it'll just be Warner Brothers, but for whatever reason, or maybe the word got out that this happened, I don't know, but whatever reason, the Badlands back catalogue got pulled and copies were recalled. So it's a rare thing. If you got the vinyl, I wish I'd kept the vinyl, it'd be worth a fortune. I had the vinyl and sold it. Like I said, I wasn't fussed at the time, and then my mate lent me and I bought the remaster. So that's what happened there. Ray Gillan, obviously by Dimsby driven, you know, he took a while to his mid-20s to get the Sabbath gig, and then he kind of flitted from that. If you listen to the Sabbath demos for Eternal Idol and listen to the live gig on the Eternal Idol special double disc, you hear like Gillan was more than capable of doing the Sabbath stuff. He did a great job of the Dio stuff and the Aussie stuff. And on the Eternal Idol tracks, he sounds great, superior to Tony Martin, I must say. And he was a singer that if Tony Iommi could have kept him, got Geezer back, and Vinny, maybe not Bill, I think the Sabbath could have existed in like a much stronger state in the 80s and 90s. Gillan was exceptionally good. But then obviously there's the thing with the John Sykes. Why he didn't carry on with that, I don't know. I think actually the record company weren't that keen on Gillan's voice for the Blue Murder stuff, and maybe that was it. But then he teamed up with this, and I think this is his legacy really. He did a track with George Lynch, a track on the Sacred Groove album. But this debut album and the other two Badlands album are, you know, his mark of greatness. And Jakey Lee, kind of setting Jakey Lee aside in his own way as more than just Ozzy's guitarist and doing that Ozzy thing, you know. And Singer and Chasen are excellent. This is by far Singer. Singer was great on the Sabbath stuff, actually, on the Seventh Star. Can't remember if he plays an Eternal, he probably does, or maybe he did the demo session. So anyway, that's my review of Badlands, 35 years old today. This is, it'll be on YouTube somewhere. This is like a really kind of cult classic, an album whose reputation has grown. This band in another era could have sustained much better, I think. Okay, so remember, share and subscribe, and I'll see you again soon. Thank you very much.